Howdy, hello, and welcome, all my peeps and people. Today, I actually want to take a break from talking about my experience in the cult for the most part and talk a little bit about what it's like to be a daughter who grew up without a mother. I've mentioned before on a couple of different videos and podcasts that I've been on that my mother passed away from cancer whenever I was 7 years old. She actually found out that she had it after she had gone to a chiropractor and she was adjusted, and her vertebrae were so eaten up with cancer that it actually shattered her vertebrae. So it was then that they obviously found out that there were more issues. I believe that she started chemotherapy and soon after decided to shave her head, and that's whenever I found out because I came home one day and she had her head shaved, and she was probably being more excited than necessary to try to make light of things. She said, who needs hair anyway? And that was whenever I first knew that something was off. Even kids as young as 6 months, there have been studies to show that they can sometimes tell moral judgment. I mean, it's almost a survival skill. And so a lot of times whenever you feel something is off, whether that be now or even whenever you were a kid, it's not something to ignore. It is something that is instinctual in us. While my mom was sick, we moved to Texas to go to MD Anderson Hospital where she could get the up-to-date care that she needed. She had a very rare form of cancer. I don't even know what it was. It was not bone cancer. It was not feminine cancer. So that's something that I've been trying to find out for years because I need to know for my own health, but I still don't have that answer. What we did know was that it was everywhere, and she was 40 years old, and it was just all over her body. So she really didn't have long to live, and they knew that. And the only reason that she decided to do treatment was because of me. If I could tell her, I would just tell her, that's not necessary. If we knew it wasn't going to work, then just live the rest of your life as you can. So we lived in Texas. I lived with my aunt in a trailer next to her, and so I didn't see everything. And to me, she was just still mom. I knew something was off. I mean, she was using a wheelchair, and she didn't have hair. But again, to me, she was still mom. Eventually, I was sent to live with my grandmother in Arkansas because she was getting worse and it was getting to her brain. And so I lived with my grandmother for a while until one day I was checked out of school and told my mom had passed away. They were taking a picture to the paper, and I asked, why does a paper need a picture of mom? And my grandmother told me that my mom had passed away that morning. And I actually don't remember anything after that. Not, we were going to Louisiana, Texas, and I don't remember going there. I don't remember the 7-hour trip. I don't remember getting there. I think the next thing I remember is being at the funeral. I remember that she was cold and it was strange and it didn't really look like her. But I know that whenever it came to closing the casket and finalizing the funeral, I ran up to the casket. I did not want it to be closed. I did not want her to be buried. I actually did suppress that memory for a long time until I was talking to somebody and was reminded of that, and it came flooding back. And I was able to process that with my counselor, which is one of the reasons you don't see me cry a lot. For one, on camera, I think I put on a face. For another, I've been processing these things for a very long time. And there are times when it does bother me, and I do cry, and I grieve all the time in different ways, but you may not always see that. After my mom died, it was just me and my dad for quite a while, maybe a few years or so, before we began living with my stepmom and my brother. Now, I'm not going to get into my family dynamics because they are so complicated, but during that time, I remember missing a lot of school and wanting to stay home. I remember having breakdowns in class and crying under the table. Again, I was 7, so I was in about first or second grade. I remember one time my teacher was just so fed up with it and she didn't know what to do, and she just said, "Shannon, she's not coming back." And I still remember that. And I think, yeah, I knew that. That was the problem. That teacher was doing the best she could. I got a little bit of therapy, but not much. A couple of school therapy sessions. I really don't think it was long enough. I think I should have been in therapy the rest of my growing up years because there were just so many things. When you have a grief of something that you didn't have, it's an ongoing grief that you feel in different ways whenever you're in different milestones, when you're in different places in your life. And so there were always things coming up for me. It wasn't too long after that, let's see, so 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So within 4 years, by age 11, I was hanging out with people who were really too old for me to be hanging out with, but I did look older than I was. I got into some groups of people who were doing drugs and having sex and all of those things. And so I was taken advantage of. I also realized that perhaps I made some decisions, although at 11, I don't think you have a lot of great judgment. I should have been more protected, but I was being raised by people who probably didn't have much knowledge on emotional intelligence of how to help themselves, let alone me. And so, yes, I got caught up in a lot of things, and I was a very wounded child. I was very hurt. And whenever you go through things like this as a child, I think you know your life has been changed forever. And it's also a time when you're developing your own sense of self and who others are. Around 7 or 8 is when you start having a conscience, and knowing that your thoughts are different from like real life and separating all these things. So this happened to me during a time of crucial development. Understandably, it affects people in a lot of ways. It affected how I trusted others. It affected my need for connection and my need for attachment. It affected my sense of safety in the world. I described it to my counselor as feeling like my world went from this vibrant, colorful place to a place that was black and white. I think I was really angry and really hurt. And a lot of times under anger is something like sadness, and that's what I had, just devastation. So although I went through a lot of not very good things during the time I was 11 to 14, and surely made some not very good choices, but was also around people who could easily take advantage of me and put me in places that were not very safe. Eventually, I looked around and I said, I don't think I want to continue on this path. And that's whenever I found the cult. And you can learn more about that story on my other videos, but I'm not going to get into that. But I absolutely believe that I would have been better off without meeting those 2 people who ran the cult that I was in. I absolutely think that my symptoms were not only made worse, but added to. I think the repeat trauma repeated and repeated and repeated when I was in that cult, to the point where I didn't feel like I had a sense of who I was. I didn't feel like I had my own thoughts, that I felt like other people knew, and that I was a shameful person, that I was not worthy to be living anymore. And there was just so much pain and so much hurt, and I had been hurt by so many adults and been not protected by so many adults, and then even taken advantage of by so many adults at that point. My sense of self was completely broken down. As a motherless daughter, I had so many things I missed out on. Like I always felt awkward, and I was always kind of dorky, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're a kid, that feeling of being different from others is already there. And whenever you have other things that exasperate that feeling, it just messes up your inner dialogue, and it messes with who you think you are and your confidence. And so I didn't grow up being in sports. I didn't grow up showing off my talents very much. I didn't grow up feeling confident in myself. I had a lot of embarrassing moments. I didn't know how to dress. I didn't know how to do my hair. I didn't know how to do my makeup. And all these things that I wish I had a mom for. Whenever I had breakups in my first relationships, it was a lot. And I went through a lot of things. Maybe one day I'll get into more about like the repeated predators that came in and out of my life and those experiences. It's a very delicate topic, and it's quite a shocking thing, to be honest. But it's actually really common, guys. It's really common. Unprotected kids are going to find themselves in situations that they would not if they were being properly protected. But I wish that I had a mom when I felt most confused in my life, and especially as I became a woman and was 18 and did start dating seriously and going through college, and I often would see other people with good relationships with their mom. And I think my story can also apply to some others who maybe have a mom who isn't caring for them. They don't love them, and they don't show them compassion, or maybe they're addicted, or mentally ill. But the general sense of feeling alone, the general sense of feeling like you're not going to have a mom, you just don't have it. I feel like there's been a lot more research and discussion on people who don't have dads, but not quite as much on people who don't have moms, or even research on how that really affects them, especially for women, or people who identify as a woman and need that womanly figure in their life. I had a lot of people who came in and out and kind of said, like, "Oh, I'll be your mom," or "I can be a mother to you," and that was actually really damaging because a lot of times, especially as a young person, it would really lift my hopes up and make me want to attach and make me want to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have this unconditional love. And that just wasn't the case. Those people made those promises, but they didn't realize what that really meant to me somehow. It probably was an appropriate thing to say, and I think we need to be really careful when we say things like that. And I really admire the people who do step up and love unconditionally, especially if it's not your child or if it's an adopted child and you're able to truly love them the way that they deserve to be loved. As a motherless daughter, my grief, like I said, is ongoing, and it continues to come up in different ways. There are times when I long for that and I wonder about her, and I do have fond memories and vivid memories of her. She was a great mom. She was very attentive, even whenever I had meltdowns, even whenever I had things that were going on. And so I still think about her. I think about her, whenever I graduated, whenever I got married, when I got my master's degree, when I have considered having children, when I have fears about having children. There's a lot of fear about, what if I get cancer? What if I die? What if I bring this child in and they don't love me? What if there's animosity? You're never promised what your relationship is going to be like with your kid. You're never promised something good. I've had to work through a lot of things regarding how people let me down, how people didn't protect me. I've had to work through a lot of things about how I see myself and how I see the world. I've had to work through a lot of things breaking down the experiences that I had. And the good thing is that happiness can be found and confidence can be found, and you can become a woman that you want to portray to others. But yes, there is always that underlying grief, just like any grief that someone may have. There's always that knowing that, like, I don't have a mom. My mother-in-law is a great woman and she gives me so much love, and my father-in-law as well, and I'm so thankful for that. And that's probably the closest that I've had to being able to heal that part of me, because she really does love me very well. But the thing is, most of the time, whether that be within me or what's really happening, most of the time I always feel like it's not quite going to be the same. I've been through a lot of things, and not as much as some, and more than others. And I think that some of the damage done has been from people after the fact. But I also believe that if you set your mind to getting help, educating yourself and getting healthy relationships, and if you have access to therapy, doing that, if you have access to a good support system, using your support system, if you set your mind to finding happiness and making a better life for yourself, it is absolutely out there for you. But most of all, just making yourself continue to get up when you fall, making yourself continue to be healthier and happier, making yourself continue to find happiness and choose happiness and want it. I believe that we do have a choice in this partially, and some people have a lot more to have to work against. I do believe that what I've gone through has significantly influenced me becoming a mental health counselor, and most of the reason that I was interested in and thrived in psychology was because it taught me things that I never knew. It taught me a lot of social skills. It taught me a lot about why I was the way I was, and that key unlocked a lot of ability to move past some of the things that I have been through. And it made me feel more empowered in who I was and what trajectory I was taking in my life. I'm now at a place where I can look at the younger me and the little girl, and I can even give her what she needs. And I can work through my grief and a lot of that, from reparenting myself and being the woman that I needed. You know, that little girl that I was didn't deserve to go through what I did. And I know how broken she was. I'm curious to know more about what you may relate to in this story. I'm also curious to know what questions you have, if any. I've always been an open book for whatever reasons, and now I'm taking my ability to be an open book to places like this. Though it's scary, I also feel like there's a lot of benefit that could be had for some people out there, especially motherless daughters, or people who have been through repeat traumas, or people who have felt like they've been alone. I am more than willing to share my story and to open up about different things to help others also find happiness and fulfillment in their life. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for sitting with me. I am using an iPad this time for my camera. I am hoping that the quality's a little better. I'm still trying to smooth out things, and I'm still learning on this journey how to edit videos, how to put stuff out there, what it means for this journey in my life. So I just appreciate you following along. I appreciate you supporting me and listening, and I hope that you will subscribe to my channel if you feel like it can be beneficial. I hope that you will share the word to those who it could be beneficial for. My journey is going in a lot of different ways with this content, but I will continue to share my experiences and things that I find interesting, as well as just whatever else I want to. I mean, I think I'll just kind of see what this becomes and what viewers want and go off of that. So I will see you hopefully in my next video. Again, thank you. Be safe. Take care of yourself. See you next time.
I wanna spend my life savings on this. I wanna abandon all financial responsibility and dump it in here.